Welcome back to another deep dive. Today we are looking at someone who I think a lot of people recognize instantly, but maybe don't actually know. You see the flat top haircut, the angular suit, that scowl that could, cut glass, and you think icon.
Right. You think performance art.
You think Bond villain.
Mm-hmm.
But who is the person inside that suit? We are talking about the one and only Grace Jones.
It's such a fascinating subject because for so many people, Grace Jones is an image first and a human being second.
Exactly.
She's this hyper-stylized entity, part Amazonian warrior, part disco queen, part, I don't know, walking art object.
Right.
But the sources we're looking at today, especially her own memoir, I'll Never Write My Memoirs, along with biographical data, discography notes, they tell a much, much more complex story.
Yes. And our mission today is to unpack that human story.
Right.
We want to figure out how this shy girl from a very strict religious upbringing in Jamaica ended up conquering the Parisian fashion world, the New York nightlife scene, and then eventually Hollywood. It is a journey from the church pew to the disco floor. And trust me, there are some serious twists along the way.
It really is a collision of worlds. I mean, you have the strict Pentecostal faith of her childhood just smashing right into the absolute hedonism of the 70s and 80s.
And somehow she comes out the other side.
She doesn't just come out the other side. She sort of emerges from that collision as this completely singular pop culture entity. There's no one like her.
And the sheer breadth of her influence is just staggering when you lay it all out. I mean, she's a Bond girl, a Bond villain, actually.
A much better villain than a Bond girl, I think.
Oh, for sure. She's a disco pioneer. She's a new wave icon, a muse to artists like Keith Haring and Andy Warhol.
And she is a walking contradiction. That's what I love about this story. She is the daughter of a preacher who became the queen of gay discos.
It doesn't make any sense on paper.
None. She was a muse who is described by her own creative partner, her lover, as beautiful and grotesque. It's those tensions, that make her so endlessly interesting.
So let's go back to the very beginning. Because if you think Grace Jones just, popped out of the womb wearing a tuxedo and holding a microphone, you are very wrong.
Very wrong. She was born in 1948 in Spanish Town, Jamaica.
Okay, so talk about the family dynamic, because you said it was crucial.
Right. It is absolutely crucial to understanding her entire psyche. Her father, Robert W. Jones, was a local politician and a clergyman, a bishop, actually.
Wow.
But the defining event of her childhood, the thing that really shaped her, happened when her parents moved to the East Coast of the United States to find work.
And this was a pretty common thing back then, right? Parents would go ahead to get established before bringing the kids over.
Exactly. It was quite common for that generation. But the consequence, the really difficult consequence, was that they left Grace and her siblings behind in Jamaica.
And who were they left with?
They were left in the care of her step-grandfather, a man they were forced to call Mas P, which stood for Master P.
Master P. That sounds ominous.
It was. By all accounts, this was a deeply traumatic experience for her.
I was reading about this in the notes, and it's heavy stuff. She describes him as a strict disciplinarian, but that feels like a huge understatement.
It's a massive understatement. The sources describe serious abuse. He would beat the children for, and this is a quote, any little act of dissent.
Any little act.
Any little thing. It wasn't just physical discipline either. It was this rigid, oppressive, religious environment. They had prayer meetings and Bible readings every single night. No exceptions.
And Grace has a very specific, a very powerful way of describing this, doesn't she?
She does. It's a quote that just sticks with you. She describes her childhood as being crushed underneath the Bible.
Wow. Crushed underneath the Bible.
It suggests this immense weight, suffocation. It wasn't just that they had to go to church. It was that the religion itself was weaponized against them. Every action, every thought was scrutinized.
It's just so hard to reconcile that image, that oppressed little girl, with the fierce, untouchable warrior woman we all know today.
Well, actually, if you connect the dots, it makes a strange kind of sense. Grace has analyzed this herself, looking back.
What did she say?
She later stated that she is militant and disciplined precisely because of this upbringing.
Oh, I see. So the framework remained, but she completely changed the purpose of it.
Precisely. She said, and I love this quote, "I am very militant and disciplined, even if that sometimes means being militantly naughty."
Militantly naughty. That's perfect.
It is. She essentially took that rigid training, how to stand, how to endure, how to hold herself under pressure, and she applied it to what she calls the arts of subversion. She used the strength that was forged in that fire to create a persona that no one could ever crush again.
That is such a powerful reframing of trauma.
Yeah.
So she's enduring this in Jamaica, but eventually the family does reunite, right?
Yes. At age 13, she moves to the U.S. to join her parents. They'd settled in Lyncourt, New York, which is near Syracuse.
A bit of a culture shock, I'd imagine.
A huge culture shock. And by this point, her father had had this intense spiritual experience during a suicide attempt, which led him to establish his own ministry, the Apostolic Church of Jesus Christ.
So the religious environment didn't get any less intense.
Not at all. But she didn't exactly fall in line with her dad's church, did she?
No, not for long. The sources say she enrolled at Onondaga Community College, where she majored in Spanish. And this is where the rebellion really starts to kick in.
It really does. She starts wearing makeup, which was forbidden. She starts drinking alcohol. And this is a key detail. She starts visiting gay clubs with her brother.
And this is where it gets kind of funny to me. She develops a whole alter ego to hide all of this from her parents.
The Mendoza persona.
Yes. She started working as a go-go dancer, but she couldn't let Bishop Robert W. Jones find out about that.
Not a chance.
So she used the surname Mendoza. Can you just imagine? No, Dad, that's not me dancing in a cage downtown. That's Grace Mendoza.
It really speaks to that duality we mentioned earlier. She was absolutely living two lives. But her rebellion wasn't just about nightlife. She fully immersed herself in the 60s counterculture.
How so?
She moved to Philadelphia for summer stock theater. She lived in hippie communes. Total immersion.
And the sources also mentioned she experimented with LSD.
She did. And unlike many who look back on that kind of thing with regret, she praised it. She said it was, and I quote, very important for my emotional growth and that the mental exercise was good for me.
So she was systematically dismantling the rigid box her childhood had put her in, brick by brick.
Every last one.
So she's broken out of the box. She's Grace Mendoza, the go-go dancer. But how does she get from Syracuse to the cover of Vogue?
Well, at 18, she moves back to New York City and signs with Wilhelmina Models. But the American market, they didn't quite know what to do with her yet.
They weren't ready.
Not at all. So in 1970, she makes the move that changes everything. She goes to Paris.
And Paris was ready.
Paris was more than ready. They were completely entranced. The Parisian fashion scene embraced her dark skin, her androgynous features, that bold, almost intimidating look.
And she started working with the biggest names?
Immediately, we're talking Yves St. Laurent, Kenzo. She was on the covers of Elle and Vogue Homes. She just exploded.
And she wasn't just working, she was living the life. I love this detail about her roommates.
It sounds like the setup for a sitcom, doesn't it? She lived with Jerry Hall.
Future Mrs. Mick Jagger.
And Jessica Lange.
Future Oscar winner. That is an insane amount of star power in one apartment.
Can you imagine? And they were at the absolute center of the scene. They were regulars at Le Sept, which was one of Paris's most popular gay clubs. She's hanging out with Giorgio Armani and Karl Lagerfeld. She was essentially royalty in both the underground and high fashion worlds simultaneously.
But the visual evolution of Grace Jones, the icon Grace Jones, really hits a new level when she meets one specific person.
Jean-Paul Goude.
Jean-Paul Goude.
This is a critical partnership. He was a French illustrator, a photographer, a graphic designer. They actually met in New York, but their collaboration is what defines her visual identity for the next decade.
And they became partners romantically, too.
They did. They had a son, Paulo, together. But professionally, what he did to her image was, well, it was literal manipulation.
He called it the French correction.
Okay.
You have to unpack that for us.
So Goude viewed Grace as his ultimate muse. He famously described her as beautiful and grotesque at the same time.
Which is a thing to say about your partner.
It certainly is. And his technique involved taking photographs of her, cutting them up with scissors or a knife, and physically rearranging them, elongating her limbs, exaggerating the angles, creating these impossible geometries with her body.
So it's Photoshop before Photoshop.
Exactly, but all analog. The most famous example, the one everyone knows, is the Island Life album cover.
Oh yeah, the arabesque pose.
That's the one! She's holding a microphone, standing on one leg, with her other leg pulled up impossibly behind her head.
It looks incredible, but when you actually look at it...
You realize you can't do that? It's anatomically impossible. Her rib cage is twisted one way, her hips are facing another. Goude constructed that image from multiple photos to create what he called a credible illusion.
He wasn't interested in reality.
Not at all. He was interested in creating a hyper-reality, with grace as his medium.
Now, we have to look at the complexity of this relationship.
Yeah.
Because Goude wasn't just taking pretty pictures. He was exploring some really intense themes.
That's right. And this is where it gets complicated. Goude had a deep fascination with what he termed exoticism. And in 1978, he created an artwork titled Nigger Arabesque, which is the piece that became that island life image.
The title itself it's incredibly jarring.
It is, and it sparked a lot of discussion then and now about the nature of their collaboration. Critics have pointed out that while these images made Grace an undisputed icon, there was a dynamic where Goude treated her as an artistic vehicle.
Like she was clay to be molded.
Exactly, that he was creating his own, as some have put it, white man's rendition of the African feminine.
It's such a complicated legacy. Because on one hand, she looks so powerful in those images.
Yeah.
Terrifying and totally in control.
Absolutely.
But on the other hand, she's being literally cut up and rearranged by an artist to fit a specific, and some would say problematic, fantasy.
It's the central tension of her most iconic era. And the sources note that this intensity, this dynamic, eventually destroyed their personal romance. But the work they created together, it defined the visual landscape of the 1980s. You cannot separate Grace Jones, the icon, from Jean-Paul Goude's French correction.
So she has the look, she has the fame, but we haven't even really talked about the music yet.
All right.
And this is where she really surprises people, I think. She didn't just find one sound and stick with it.
No, she evolved constantly. Her music career really has three very distinct phases. And it starts in 1977. She signs to Island Records and dives headfirst into the disco craze.
The Disco Queen era.
Right. Her first three albums, Portfolio, Fame, and Muse, are pure, unadulterated disco. And the big hit here, the one that broke her as a singer, is her reinterpretation of Edith Piaf's La Vie en Rose.
Which is such a bold move, taking this beloved French classic and turning it into a 7-minute disco anthem.
And it absolutely worked. She became the queen of the gay discos. Her live shows were flamboyant, highly sexualized, legendary. But by 1979, they hit a wall.
Disco's dead.
The disco sucks movement was in full swing.
Yeah.
Anti-disco sentiment was rising fast. If she had stayed in that lane, she would have become a relic overnight.
She needed to pivot.
And this pivot is, in my opinion, one of the greatest, most successful reinventions in pop music history.
This is where we get to the Compass Point trilogy.
Yes. She goes to Nassau in the Bahamas, to the legendary Compass Point studios, and Chris Blackwell, the head of Island Records, puts together a house band for her, the Compass Point All-Stars.
And this isn't just any band. We're talking about Sly and Robbie.
We are talking about Sly Dunbar on drums and Robbie Shakespeare on bass. The greatest reggae rhythm section of all time, period. Plus the French keyboardist Wally Badarou.
So what was the sound they created?
What they did was fuse new wave, post-punk, and reggae into this slinky, dangerous, dub-heavy sound. It's cold and robotic, but also incredibly funky.
That's such a cool sound. It's
It
spacious.
It is, and it completely changed how she sang. In the disco era, she was belting, using her full soprano range. But with this new sound, she adopted this monotone speaking style.
Like on Private Life.
Exactly. She sounds detached, almost bored, but at the same time incredibly commanding. It's menacing.
And Private Life is a cover, right? Of The Pretenders.
It is. The first album of this trilogy, in 1980's Warm Leatherette, is mostly covers. The Normal, Roxy Music, Tom Petty's Breakdown. But she completely deconstructs them and makes them her own.
And then comes the masterpiece.
Yeah.
1981, Nightclubbing.
This is widely considered her best studio album, just a perfect record from start to finish.
It has Pull Up to the Bumper.
Which has this R&B, almost funk sound. It was actually rejected for the previous album for being too black-sounding, believe it or not.
Seriously.
That's what the sources say. And it became one of her biggest hits. The album also has I've Seen That Face Before, Libertango.
Oh, that song is the ultimate mood. It sounds like a spy movie set in a Parisian cafe, all in audio form.
It really does. And visually, the cover of Nightclubbing, a painting by Goude, is just as important. It's her in an Armani suit, cigarette dangling from her mouth, that iconic flat-top hair. It's gender-bending, it's tough, it's just perfect.
So she's conquered music again. She's conquered fashion. But Grace being Grace, she decides to take this whole new persona on the road. And not just a concert, A full-on performance piece.
A one-man show.
Yes.
This tour in 1981 was pure performance art.
Yeah.
She wasn't just standing at a microphone singing songs. She dressed as a gorilla. She had these incredibly elaborate costumes. At one point, she had multiple Grace Jones lookalikes on stage with her. The video version was even nominated for a Grammy. It cemented the idea that Grace Jones wasn't a singer you listened to. She was an experience you survived.
Survived is the right word, because around this time, Hollywood starts calling, and she is terrifying on screen.
Hollywood saw this intimidating persona and said, yes, we can use that.
First up, Conan the Destroyer in 1984. She plays Zula, the Amazonian warrior.
Alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger. And honestly, she looked like she could take him in a fight. Her physicality was just off the charts. It was perfect for the role.
And then, the big one. The role that made her a global household name, James Bond.
A View to a Kill in 1985, she plays Mayday.
She is the quintessential henchwoman. She's lifting men clean over her head. She's base jumping off the Eiffel Tower.
She was unforgettable. And then in 1986, she plays a vampire queen in the movie Vamp.
Which makes total sense. If anyone is an immortal vampire queen, it's Grace Jones.
Keith Haring actually painted her body for that role, which again is this incredible connection between high art and pop cinema that just follows her everywhere.
So while she's doing the movie star thing, she also releases another massive album, Slave to the Rhythm.
This is 1985, and it's a concept album produced by the legendary Trevor Horn. Now here's a great bit of trivia. That project was originally intended for Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
No way!
Yeah, as the follow-up to their huge hit, Relax.
I cannot imagine anyone else singing that title track. Her delivery is so iconic.
It ended up with Grace, and it became her signature song. The album itself is fascinating because it's basically just various interpretations of that one song.
Right.
Interspersed with interview clips where she's talking to the journalist Paul Morley about her life. It's almost a documentary set to music.
And it was a huge hit for her. But we can't talk about her media presence in the 80s without mentioning the Russell Hardy incident.
Oh, the slap.
The slap heard around the world.
It was a British chat show. Russell Hardy was the host, and he made the mistake of turning his back on Grace to interview the other guests on the couch.
And she was not having it.
She felt ignored. She felt disrespected. And in Grace Jones's world, you do not ignore Grace Jones.
She started repeatedly slapping him on the arm.
She did. It became this legendary, shocking TV moment, and it really reinforced that scary, unpredictable reputation she had.
So she completely owns the 80s. Fashion, music, film. But then the 90s come around and she sort of vanishes.
She calls them her wilderness years. She actually vowed at one point never to do an album again.
Why? She was on top of the world. What happened?
She just hated the production trends of the 90s. She felt that producers were, in her words, just mincing her vocals.
Mincing them.
Yeah, chopping them up, focusing on sampling. She wanted to sing, to perform, not be a tiny soundbite in some techno track. She had a couple of projects, like an album called Black Marilyn and a collaboration with Tricky called Force of Nature, but they all got shelved or canceled.
That must have been incredibly frustrating, to feel like the industry you helped shape had moved to a place where your actual talent wasn't valued anymore.
It seems so. But she didn't stay gone forever. In 2008, after nearly 20 years away from music, she returned.
With the album Hurricane.
Yes, the comeback. And this wasn't just a, here's some remixes of my old hits kind of album. This was deeply, deeply personal.
What was the catalyst for it?
She met the producer Ivor Guest through the famous milliner Philip Treacy. And the content of Hurricane brings us right back to the very beginning of our story today.
How so?
Well, there's a song on it called William's Blood. And Williams was her mother's maiden name. The song is all about her mother and the conflict she felt with her father's religion. It's Grace, at 60 years old, finally reckoning with her heritage.
Wow.
There's also Corporate Cannibal, which is this terrifying industrial critique of capitalism.
I love Corporate Cannibal. The video is absolute nightmare fuel. She looks like this morphing digital demon.
It proved she hadn't lost an ounce of her edge. And she reunited with Sly Robbie for the album and Brian Eno. It was a critically acclaimed, triumphant return.
And she just kept proving that age is, just a number. We have to talk about the Queen's Diamond Jubilee in 2012.
Oh, yes, the Jubilee concert. Grace is 64 years old at this point. She comes out on this massive stage to sing Slave to the Rhythm.
And she hula hoops.
The entire time. For the entire song, without ever dropping it.
And singing live without missing a single breath.
It was just this astonishing display of core strength, breath control, and pure showmanship that people half her age couldn't dream of pulling off.
It's just showing off at that point.
Yeah.
But, I mean, she earned it.
She certainly did. And when you look at the modern pop landscape, you see Grace's DNA everywhere. Lady Gaga, Rihanna, Lorde, Annie Lennox, they all cite her as a primary inspiration.
She really wrote the blueprint for the art pop weirdo superstar, didn't she?
Absolutely. And she's still working, still collaborating. She was on a Gorillaz track in 2017. She featured on Beyoncé's Renaissance album in 2022. She's not a museum piece. She's still a creative force.
Before we wrap up, I do want to clear up some of the personal life details, because the rumors about her are almost as wild as her outfits.
Right. There are always these rumors about multiple marriages. In her memoir, she clarifies that she has only been married once, to a man named Attila Altanbe.
So the rumors about being married to her former bodyguard, Chris Stanley.
She disputes those entirely. And of course, she had the very high-profile relationships with the actor Dolph Lundgren.
She got him his role in the Bond movie.
She did. And with Jean-Paul Goude, the father of her son.
Good to set the record straight on that. So we've gone from this strict Pentecostal households in Jamaica, where she was literally beaten for dissent,
to the runways of Paris, the discos of New York, and the Hollywood silver screen. It's an incredible arc.
And it all comes back to that idea of discipline.
It does. She took the trauma of her childhood, that militant upbringing, and she flipped it. She became militantly fabulous, militantly creative, militantly herself.
I keep thinking about that quote from Goude about her being intimidating.
It was a constructed image, for sure. But the discipline underneath it, the steel in her spine, that was real. She wasn't just wearing a costume. She was living a performance 24/7.
So what does this all mean for us? Why does Grace Jones still matter so much today?
I think she represents the ultimate refusal to compromise. In a world where social media encourages us all to curate these palatable, friendly, easy-to-digest personas, Grace Jones has always been jagged. She's been scary, she's been weird, she's been impossible to define. She reminds you that you don't have to fit neatly in a box. In fact, you can cut the box up and wear it as a hat.
That is the perfect way to put it. And here's a final thought to leave you with. Grace said in her memoir, "I am very militant and disciplined, even if that sometimes means being militantly naughty."
A fantastic quote to live by.
So ask yourself this. In our world of carefully managed brands and PR-friendly stars, is Grace Jones the last true example of a life lived as uncompromised performance art? Is there anyone else who could slap a TV host, hula hoop for the Queen, and scare Arnold Schwarzenegger, all while looking impeccable?
I don't think so. She is truly one of one.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the wild, wonderful world of Grace Jones. We'll see you next time.